Hello, universe. Welcome to Mind Corner of James. I want to fill this corner with some vibes of love, some lovey-dovey vibes. You know what I mean? Something that makes you feel all mushy gushy inside. In the sense where you can really enjoy it. Because for some reason, whenever you look at mushy gushy love, you always kind of like, hmm, that feels, ew, not weird and not necessarily gross, but it kind of does. But ultimately speaking, you do feel that it's gross, but you know that it's not, and that's kind of a weird thing. And maybe we could look into that. Why is it that mushy gushy type stuff makes us feel kind of grossed out when we're not actually experiencing that mushy gushy love ourselves? I wonder if that's something people really wonder about. I mean, pretty sure everybody knows what that feels like, at the very least, which would basically mean it's important to actually look at. I mean, like, what? Why not know? Why shouldn't we try to know what that's all about? Um, it reminds me of that scene in Pulp Fiction when um, Uma Thurman's character asks John Travolta about the whole awkward silence thing. We don't really talk about it very much, but there is that awkward silence thing that happens between people, and we all know it happens, and we all go through it, but yet we don't really talk about it very much. Anyway, I think it's the same thing with the mushy gushy thing. It's like that newlywed couple that's just giving each other Eskimo kisses in public and calling each other stuff like, "Oh, you're my lovey dovey puppy. Yes, you are. You're so cute." Well, that's like a lot of fun to do yourself when you're feeling all magical and lovey dovey, but ultimately speaking, it's pretty gross. Pretty gross to look at from the outside. Okay, so let's assume that that's the truth. It's kind of like, ooh, yeah. I mean, it's like you want to be able to say something like, "Ooh, what you're doing is gross because," but then there is no because. We always kind of stop there, and it's like, well, I don't know, it's just gross. um, I kind of want to go to a little bit more woo woo esoteric kind of levels, and maybe sort of think about how it could very well be the fact that you yourself are not in a secure place, I guess. Now, that's not to say that you might not be a secure person or that you're not actually secure, but definitely not, experiencing that level of security that few people experience only in those moments. Because nobody really lives in that kind of realm of mushy gushy love with another person for very long. So maybe there's like a whole new level of feeling secure and happy, and it really just looks kind of gross for people who are not on that level. Um, you know, that's kind of a cynical thing to think about, maybe, but it also kind of gives me hope for the future because, ultimately speaking, we're definitely going towards the future in a sense, or in a way that seems to be more inclusive and peaceful and, diverse in the old sense of the word diverse, which means, you know, the celebration of the differences and colorful sort of beauty of different people with different ideas and all that kind of stuff. Whereas diversity nowadays seems to exclude that and use the differences as not something to be celebrated, but something to be revered and fearful of, um, in order to, I don't know, establish some greater sense of security. And that's not really the right way to go. Anyway, speaking of love, I gotta say, I'm kind of, when you're talking and you're sort of like holding your breath. I'm doing that right now. Whew. Hold on, let me breathe. Okay, great. I was holding my breath because I don't know, for some reason I'm nervous talking about this. It really is just my second Mind Corner of James podcast, so I'm trying to get used to just talking at the wall. um, and I'm trying to imagine someone with whom I could sort of have a conversation. And in a sense, I'm trying to imagine all of you who may very well be kind of listening to me in the future. On top of that, it's not even live. So anyway, speaking of love, I love you, and I love myself. I think that's the reason for why I've been doing these podcast things. And there you go. I'm sort of entering into a whole mushy gushy kind of relationship with my future listeners. That's kind of strange. Anyway, so mushy gushy, is it a sense of security? Is that what it is? Is that gross to see a couple that's all mushy gushy because we're not secure? I mean, it seems to be the case for someone who's, let's say, too masculine. You know, that we all know that kind of person, that guy who's grown up in a household where the dad says, "Oh, you gotta man up and you can't cry." And emotion is seen as something to be held in because that's what a real man, is, and that's what a real man does. Well, obviously, that's not really the way things are, and I'm not saying that men should be, emotional to the degree that it's unhealthy, but I think when it comes to true toxic masculinity, it would be the repression of emotion, and not this whole being rowdy and chasing girls. This is not toxic. This is just being human. Well, as much as men are human and honor their humanity by sort of acting out their very masculine kind of behaviors of chasing women and being kind of aggressive and loud, we should also honor, as men, our capacity for love and emotions. And anyway, so we all know that one guy who doesn't do that, who grew up kind of insecure, and then they barely even think it's something that's not gay to give your best friend a hug. They'd be like, "Oh, no, I can't give you a hug, man. That would be gay." It's like, no, sexuality for some reason gets all wrapped up in it, and again, it's something that has to do with insecurity. Anyway, I want to try to dig deeper. I don't really think it's just that. It can't really just be that, can it? To just sort of feel that gross kind of insecure feeling when you see this lovey-dovey kind of stuff. I'm thinking maybe it's fear. Maybe it's also fear. Fear that you may not actually experience that in the future for yourself. It's something you desire, but at the same time fear, because you know that it's not something that you have in your life currently in that moment, and it may very well be something that you might not have in the future. So that could very well be another thing. All right, time for another breath. Yeah, you know what, I'm kind of thinking this should be a recurring thing. I think maybe I should start breathing a lot more often. You don't really hear that in podcasts. You don't really have this sort of out of the blue interruption, and it's just like, hey, let's breathe. Maybe we could breathe together, because I know I definitely need to, especially when I'm talking about random stuff. I tend not to know how to use my breath, and I kind of want to love myself in that sense. I think I want to start learning how to love myself properly and take the time, because that's part of what loving yourself is all about, is to take the time to breathe, take the time to do what you need, you know what I mean, and not what you think you want, because that's not what you need. What I need is something that I usually don't pay attention to, and I think that's pretty, I don't know, common for most people, is they get that mixed up. What you need is usually something that seems decoupled from what you want, or opposite of what you want. But ultimately speaking, we always truly want what we need, but we ignore what we need, and so we usually end up getting what we don't want as a result. So, you know what I mean? Maybe I can use an example for that. Let's say, let's say, what I want is to find myself a beautiful girl. I want to have companionship and a true relationship with someone whom I can share experiences and have fun. But as a young man, I remember going out and partying and trying to bang as many girls as I can. I went through that period of my life as well. And in my mind, I felt like, well, the more women I sort of end up partying with and sleeping with, at some point I'm giving myself more of a chance to meet a girl with whom I might actually feel something. Because if say I've dated, let's say 8 girls in the last 6 months, then, that's a sort of probability thing. It's kind of like, well, there's, it's more than 2 girls every 6 months, so I have a greater chance out of those 8 girls to find the one with whom I want to have a relationship and be happy with. And so, I ultimately speaking, what I want is the relationship, but what I'm actually doing is getting flings and one night stands. And I think that's how I'm going to get what I want. But what I really need, okay, is not to go and party and meet girls that way, but to, go and do more wholesome things. Go take a language class at a language school, or go to the farmer's market. That's really what I could do to help me get what I need, which is, a more wholesome life, a lifestyle that allows me to demonstrate a more full James, a full person. And that in the situations where people can see that fullness of who I am, and so ultimately what I need is to live a life that's more conducive to finding love, not finding lust. So yeah, that would be a bit of a good example, I guess. But it's making me think if anybody out there has ever had a situation like that with whom, in a sense, that they could give me a better example to show how they chased something that they wanted, but weren't chasing that want with something they needed. You know what I mean? I was trying to have fun, and that's what I wanted, but really what I needed was a stable relationship. And after having dated so many girls and gone through, these kind of shitty situations, I ended up sort of stopping that lifestyle. And then when I finally got myself into a relationship, I realized, this is what I actually wanted. So I think the whole situation is that we have to align our wants and our needs. Try to realize that what you need is usually something that you actually want, and that the wants you had before you figured out what you needed weren't really wants. They were, egotistical lusts. They were just figments of your imagination that you were chasing. They ended up being nothing. Okay, another breath. It's really strange because I'm drinking a beer, and I spoke earlier. I've recorded a couple of podcasts today, and I wasn't really this nervous. Maybe it's the love. Is it the fact that I'm talking about love, I wonder, that's making me feel nervous? Or maybe it's the alcohol that I've been drinking that it's making me kind of, I don't know, feel like I may not have the right frame of mind to be speaking about this kind of topic. It's strange because, I just use the example of, me having gone out getting drunk to meet girls. I was just kind of talking about that. And at the same time, I'm sort of having a beer. Maybe the two are correlated. I don't know. It's kind of like an ironic thing. I don't drink very often anymore, actually. So hold on, you might hear me drinking. I need another sip. I'm drinking this a German beer. It's called Warsteiner. Pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. Or Warsteiner. No, Warsteiner. Yeah. It's a German Pilsner. It's pretty good. It's not bad. I've never tried it before, and I'm actually moving to Germany soon, in a couple of months, February 10th. Um, Pretty excited about that. In theory, I don't actually feel excitement. It's weird because I live in the present now. It's been about a year and a half that my life has really changed. And ever since, I just feel like I may not feel excited for the future, but I'm never worried about the future. It's because I'm always trying to stay in the present. I'm gonna be honest here, full disclosure, I suffered a deep, deep, intense depression for 6 years. And so when I got out of it, ooh, excuse me, it's a burp. Ooh, another one. So when I got out of the depression, um, I really just the world changed for me, and I just became a different person. 6 years, that was almost the entirety of my 20s. I'm 27 now, and so you know, I basically changed as a man only in the last year. The changes you normally would go through, um, from 20 to 27, you change gradually. But for me, it seems like I was stuck in one kind of phase, a blurry, drunken phase, because I also sort of abused alcohol during that period of depression, um, and maybe that's what caused my depression to some degree as well. And so when I came out of it, I've really, really changed a lot, and it allowed me to live in the present moment. Whereas when you're depressed, you don't love yourself, and you fear your future. That's the biggest problem with depression, I think, is that you're always fearing the future. Hence why you never want to deal with anything in the present moment, because it's all hopeless. You fear that everything you're going to do, or that you could do in the moment, is just hopeless. So the future is really something you worry about, um, anyway, because it's just sort of hanging over your head. But that being said, after I got out of it, I learned to love myself, and so loving myself is staying in the present moment, and staying in the present moment um, usually means that you don't fear the future. Of course, sometimes you think about it and you can stress about it, but on a second to second basis, you're usually just not just worrying. You're just staying in the present, and that's a great feeling. But it has this sort of like side effect of you also not being excited for the future. I mean, you are if you when you actually think about it, but you know until like it's 2 months away, right? So until I have like 2 or 3 days before I head to Germany, then I'm pretty sure I'm not going to feel that bubbly excitement inside and deep down in my pit. Um, so I don't know if it's like that for everybody else, but you gotta admit it's kind of interesting how self-love ties into how you perceive time, and how you perceive time also ties into how you experience emotions like excitement and fear. It's like this interesting sort of matryoshka doll. It's just one thing inside the other, inside the other. It's all connected. Um, Love is interesting that way. I find it's kind of you know it really is everything. You can always reduce certain things, or you can reduce pretty much everything down to love. If you subscribe to the idea that love is the infinite, because everything is a paradox, which is something I believe you're going to understand what I mean in the future, because I'll be talking a lot about my philosophy that I'm trying to work on. Not that I'm trying to. I'm working on it, and I'm happy to say and proud to say that I'm doing a pretty good job, and I think I'm onto something new, and it's called paradoxism. Anyway, I hold this firm belief that everything is paradoxical, and a paradox is synonymous with the idea of infinity or the infinite. And, you can equate that as being love. And I think many people do anyway. It's not that common of an idea in that sense. But paradoxism as a philosophy and how it functions and how it reconciles physics with consciousness ultimately has a philosophical implication that is pretty revolutionary in my view. So um, I'm pretty excited to develop this philosophy. It's a philosophy of love as well. So, okay, another breath. Yeah, breathing. It feels good. It feels good. I'm hoping. I'm hoping you're breathing with me at the same time. I think. I think that's. It's funny because if you think about breathing, it's something that you don't think about, and yet it's the one thing that you never stop doing, or at least I hope you never stop doing. It's really keeping you alive. As a physical idea, you could think about that as love as well, right? I mean, each breath that you take, it's keeping you alive, and in that sense, it kind of makes you think about love. If you had absolutely no grasp on love in some measure of hope at least for love, you wouldn't be alive. You I guess would put a bullet in your brain right away. So maybe that's what happens to people who commit suicide is they somehow convince themselves or are blinded to the fact that they are loved. Um, and they reach a moment in time where that blindness is so dark that they, you know, can't help but, commit that act of suicide because it's impossible to live without love. So it's a very powerful thing, love. Like I said, you could reduce everything, and that's what I just did. I didn't even have the intention to do it. That's cool. But yeah, every breath you take is like, uh, you know, is like every feeling of love you cherish. That sounds like a Hallmark kind of card saying. Uh, you know, maybe I can make it a maxim of mine. Anyway, I'm trying to relate everything I've talked about so far. Oh yes, mushy gushy. So obviously, love seems to be something intrinsic to our lives. We don't ever stop loving in different ways, and uh, you know, I guess because we don't stop loving, it's probably impossible to feel mushy gushy about the very things that keep us alive. So, in a sense, when you do feel mushy gushy, when you are yourself in that zone, does that maybe mean that you're alive even more so than you are usually? It's almost like being, when you feel just absolutely alive. And I think, yeah, the two correlate. Oh my God, that makes so much sense. When you're madly in love and in the moment, you're there with your lover and it's that magical time. Maybe it's the first kiss, maybe it's the first time that you've had this deep conversation and you're all excited about it because you understand each other on some deep level that you've never attained before with another human being. And so you just leap into each other's arms and you feel so alive. I mean, your body is tingling and your heart is beating. And so, you just make out in this most romantic way with the person, and it seems so mushy gushy because maybe you make love and then you sort of rub each other's noses on each other's cheeks and you do the whole kind of absolutely romancy schmancy type stuff, and that lasts for days, and that's why you're in public, with your hand in each other's pants and that kind of stuff. Maybe it's because you're feeling so alive. The two correlate. The more you enter this state of love, the more you feel alive. Um, you know, and the two kind of influence each other. It's like it's cycle. It's like one makes the other happen, makes the other happen, because you sort of have to live in order for you to, you know, get into that position where you would have the opportunity to find someone who can make you feel that way. So if you go and live your life, you'll find love, and that love will make you feel alive, and then it'll just sort of spiral upwards from there. And yeah, the two sensations of love and life sort of commune, and um, I guess consummate, and within your heart, within your soul, and that's really what makes you feel kind of that mushy gushy feeling. Another breath. Yeah, yeah. I'm really loving this this idea, this sort of interesting take on love and life and what it can be and how it works. Yeah, I've never really thought about it in these terms before. There's something great about just kind of talking to yourself. You know, the more you say things without having someone to say them to, the more you discover who you are when you speak it out loud, whatever it is you feel and think. Because I guess you don't have any prompt, you don't have anything that sort of sets up a scenario or a structure or a direction for you to go in. It's not like someone's asking you a question and then oh, okay, so this is relevant to such and such a topic. No, you just sort of have to, start speaking. And so whatever wells up from within you will well up naturally, and then you realize, so I guess that's what I'm thinking, that's what I'm feeling, that's who I am. This is James. This is the mind corner of James, but also the heart corner of James. Ooh, are we talking about another segment here? Maybe I could have a sort of heart corner of James segment where I'm talking to different people about things that relate to emotions and love and maybe other things. I don't know. Could be something in the future. Could be something interesting. Okay, another breath. Yeah, I'm going to be honest here. I think the beer didn't help. Um, Sometimes I feel anxiety from drinking alcohol. It just sort of triggers that. Um, that's something I want to talk to people about later on as well. I have an extensive sort of experience with anxiety and panic attacks, and I believe I have some very important and I guess interesting things to say about how it works and how to get over it and all these things. I mean, there's a lot of information out there, but um, I think I have a talent for describing things in ways that are very unique to my experience, and in some way, if someone can express something in a very, very I guess clear manner and deep, sort of detailed fashion, people can relate to it much easier because we're all ultimately a little bit more similar in our experiences. We all kind of feel the same things in the same ways, a lot more than we think we do. So, yeah, I think I have some insights about the experience of how anxiety works. So maybe that would be the next topic for the next podcast. But until then, just want to let you know that you're loved, and I'm really happy you I don't know, listened to this, and I hope you I don't know, enjoy the rest of your day. All right.